Hello there, this is Welsh ASMR 82. Hey, how you doing? So, we're going to do another couple of pages from the Atlas of Unusual Borders, an absolute favourite on this channel. And I thought we would... Well, this made the better thumbnail, so I put that on the thumbnail, but we'll come to that in a second. I'm going to start off with this one, which I read about somewhere else. It's the difference between New Jersey and New York, but some of New York is actually over the state line in the Hudson River. So we're going to do that one first, and then we'll take a look at the Mississippi, okay? Sound good? If you haven't been watching this series so far, I'll put a couple of the other parts. I think this is like the part 4 or 5 now we're on, so you've got some catching up to do. Okay, I really hope you enjoy the video and you find it at the very least interesting, but obviously it's an ASMR video, so it's supposed to be relaxing as well, and I hope that you do find it. So let's make a start. For millions of immigrants seeking their fortune in the USA between the end of the 19th and the middle of the 20th centuries, Ellis Island was the place where they first disembarked. This island, less than a kilometre away from the Statue of Liberty and Liberty Island, covers an area of 11 hectares but is divided by a rather unusual border between the federal states of New York and New Jersey. In the 19th century, New York and New Jersey reached an agreement that the island, which at the time was situated in New Jersey waters, should become an exclave of New York. As the island became too small for the requirements of the Immigration Service, it was greatly enlarged by land reclamation, its area being increased to approximately 10 times its original size. Wow. New Jersey then pointed out that only the area of the natural part of the island belonged to New York, and that the artificial expansion belonged to New Jersey, regardless of the borders of the federal states. Ellis Island has been property of the United States government for the past 2 centuries. The situation regarding the nearby Liberty Island, best known as the location of the Statue of Liberty, is also unusual. The island itself belongs to New York, but all the water surrounding the island up to the coast itself belongs to New Jersey, so that the Statue of Liberty is claimed by both American states. It's really funny because when you hear the Statue of Liberty you think New York. What a different story it would be if it were New Jersey. This is the Hudson River, we've got the Liberty Island here, and that's the old part, that's the sort of natural Ellis Island, but this is the reclaimed part, which curiously belongs to New Jersey. Only this part of the island belongs to New York. Okay, the most southeasterly point of the American federal state of Kentucky is the Kentucky Bend Peninsula, with less than 20 inhabitants, which was formed as the result of great meanders of the Mississippi River. The only land connection of the 45 square kilometre peninsula is to the south, where it borders Tennessee. It is quite likely that the Mississippi River will fairly soon break through this connection with the Tennessee, turning Kentucky Bend into an island, after which it will gradually connect with its northern neighbour, the state of Missouri. The small US town of Payne, 220 inhabitants, in the state of Georgia, represented an enclave within the larger town of Macon. I'm not sure how I pronounce that. 230,000 inhabitants. After numerous unsuccessful referendums, Payne was finally officially disbanded in 2015 and annexed to Macon. A similar situation also exists with the small towns of Norwich and Harwood Heights, which are officially enclaves within the city of Chicago. There are many such examples in the USA. In Pennsylvania alone, there are over 300 internal enclaves within cities, villages, and municipalities. Let's take a look at the picture then. So we've got Tennessee here. The red line then is Kentucky. So Missouri is here. So that's the Kentucky Bend. So that's part of Kentucky Bend. That's part of Kentucky then. But this is Missouri and that's Tennessee. How confusing. So they're saying that this Kentucky Bend is actually probably going to cut off at some point and then the water will dry up here. And then where's that? How strange, but then it'll actually be connected to Missouri anyway, not Kentucky. Unless I misunderstood it. Oh, I really want to learn about this. I'm so glad I brought it up. Okay, so this is Germany. And this weird situation happens where Bremen is there, but also there, like miles away on the coast. It is called Breman Haven, I believe. And then within itself, you can see there's the box there. So that is not even connected there. So there's three separate sections. The larger part is called Breman Haven, or the harbour of Bremen. And then there's a little slip of land in between. It connects it with a second part or third part of Bremen. So Bremen's there, and then there as well. Very odd. This over here is the beautiful city of Hamburg. This is the state of Lower Saxony, incidentally, in Germany. And then the top one is Schleswig-Holstein. This is the North Sea. And not a million miles away to the north is Denmark. Netherlands would be just there. The smallest German federal state, officially the free Hanseatic city of Bremen, consists of two enclaves, covering a total area of 404 square kilometres, some 60 kilometres apart from each other, and fully surrounded by the province of Lower Saxony. Oh yeah, that's the other thing, it's not just a city, it's like a state of its own. At the 1815 Vienna Congress, the city of Bremen was pronounced one of the 39 sovereign states within the German Confederation. Since the Weser River, on which Bremen stands 60 kilometres from the mouth in the North Sea, deposited large quantities of sand, Bremen required a new port on the sea coast. The land was purchased from the Kingdom of Hanover of that time, and thus the new port was constructed there named Bremerhaven, literally meaning the port of Bremen. Presently this town is a second enclave which, together with the city of Bremen, forms the German federal state of Bremen. Additionally, the northeastern part of Bremerhaven, Veermoor, is detached from the rest of Bremerhaven by a narrow strip of land that belongs to Lower Saxony, making it in fact the third enclave forming this German province. Another small German federal province, the free and Hanseatic city of Hamburg, has its own sea enclave. The city-state of Hamburg is located on the Elbe River, about 110 kilometers south of its mouth with the North Sea. After the Second World War, not far from the mouth of the Elbe, and some 120 kilometers away from Hamburg, the plan was for a big port. Hang on, I've missed a bit there, sorry. Let me go back. Since Hamburg believed that it would require space for the construction of a deep draft port, it was assigned two small islands in the North Sea. After the Second World War, not far from the mouth of the River Elbe and some 120 kilometers away from Hamburg, the plan was for a big port to be constructed on the islands, but the enormous costs and ongoing rallies of environmental protesters resulted in the postponement, then abandonment of the plans. Nowadays there are 3 islands in that enclave, 2 natural ones, populated Neuwerk, 3 square kilometers and 40 inhabitants, an unpopulated Scharhön, and an artificial one, Nigerhön, formed when it became apparent that the waves endangered the neighbouring Scharhön and the bird sanctuary there. That entire enclave is now a national park, but also part of the whole series of coastal national parks along the North Sea coast of Denmark, Germany and the Netherlands. Okay, let's skip a few pages. So I want to... it's an interesting one. This one for our Australians. So this is to do with Tasmania. This is the Bass Strait. This is Hogan Island. And the state of Victoria is to the north and Tasmania to the south here. And I'm assuming we're going to talk about this boundary islet. Another oddity has to do with the land border of the Australian states of Victoria and Tasmania. As Tasmania is an island state, the land border of these states is not shown on any map. However, it does exist. It is situated on the tiny boundary islet in Bass Strait, which separates Tasmania from Australia. When the northern seaboard of Tasmania was defined, it was decided that the line would be drawn along the latitude of 39 degrees by 12. It was only later that it was established that boundary islet did not lie further north as was believed until then, but that it was situated exactly at that latitude, and thus it was given that name and the shortest boundary between the Australian states, only 85 metres long. The islet covers an area of about 6 hectares and represents a bare rock whipped mercilessly by wind and waves. I have a cousin who lives in Tasmania, actually. The only nation whose official capital is a ghost town. Sounds fun. Oh, that's quite a large one. Maybe I should read this one instead. We'll skip that one. They're all quite long. Let's read this. La Cure, between France and Switzerland. Look at the map. So we got France to the north and the west, and then Switzerland to the south and the east. La Cure is here. And this is the Hotel Arbès, which is over the border. This is called the cross-border hotel that welcomed German soldiers in one half, while members of the French resistance stayed in the other. La Cure is a small village on the border of France and Switzerland, about 30 kilometers north of Geneva. In this case, on the border may be taken literally, since part of the village lies in Switzerland and part in France. The border divides the village, streets, and even some buildings, the most famous being Hotel Arbès, or Arbès. Until the second half of the 19th century, La Cure was completely in France. When France and Switzerland were established, the exact position of the rather complex border at that time. The two countries exchanged some small pieces of territory and the border ended up being drawn directly through La Cure. According to a treaty, it was agreed that existing buildings were not to be disturbed, even if the boundary bisected them. The most well-known building in La Cure is Hotel Arbès, where the French-Swiss border bisects several rooms. The border even passes through the honeymoon suite, dividing the double bed, which presents a tourist attraction. That's cool. The hotel was constructed in an interesting way. The treaty signed by the French and Swiss authorities anticipated that any buildings existing at the time of its ratification would not be torn down. An enterprising young man bought some land on the site of the future border and quickly constructed a building before the treaty became valid. An entrepreneur. After the ratification, he opened a grocer's shop on the Swiss side of the building and a bar on the French side. The sons of this man later sold the building to the grandfather of today's owner, who turned the building into a hotel and restaurant. During the German occupation of France in the Second World War, the German soldiers were allowed to stay in the French part of the hotel, while crossing to the Swiss side was strictly forbidden, as they were neutral. It was not unusual for German soldiers to dine in the French restaurant, while members of the French resistance movement were staying in rooms on the Swiss side. Oh, this sounds interesting. This is between Estonia and Latvia, towards the north of that's the Baltics in Europe. So we've got Valka and Valga, and we've got a border right through them. So this is Estonia, and this is Latvia. And it says where residents needed their passports when they visited neighbours across the street. Oh my god. Borders may exist for some time, then they may be moved, abolished, and new ones established. Occasionally, because of such changes, new borders may be drawn through unexpected places. For example, through a town. The town of Walk was founded in the Middle Ages by German knights, who ruled the area belonging to today's Baltic republics and former USSR. For almost 2 centuries, this town was even the seat of Parliament, Landtag, of the Livonian Confederation, one of the most important states of German chivalric orders. After the First World War and the independence of Estonia and then Latvia, it was uncertain which country should claim Walk, or Valk, it was probably pronounced actually. With the aid of an international commission, it was decided that Estonia should get most of the town and Latvia a smaller part. Estonia named its part Valga, Valk, so Valga, and Latvia Valka. It was in Valka that the independence of Latvia was proclaimed for the first time and its red, white, red flag raised. After the Second World War, Estonia and Latvia were incorporated, not quite voluntarily, into the USSR. So the former international border became the border of the Soviet republics. This lasted until the 1990s when Estonia and Latvia gained independence again. The border was once again established in the middle of the town. New barbed wires were in place, and the residents needed passports to visit their neighbours across the street. Fortunately, the situation lasted only until the beginning of the 21st century, when both countries entered into the European Union and a little later into the Schengen area. From then on, the development of Valga Valka began to gather pace. Boundaries were lifted, border crossings and fences removed, and the two towns gradually merged. Complete integration of many of the city services, such as transport, is planned. The introduction of the euro has also made life easier for the inhabitants of the town, whose motto is "One town, two countries." How cute. Valga today has a population of 13,000 inhabitants and an area of about 16 square kilometres, while Valka is somewhat smaller, with about 6,000 people and an area of 14 square kilometres. I think I've got time for one more. Let's do this one. So this is the border now between Germany and Poland. This is the town of Słubice, and this is Frankfurt Oder, not Frankfurt like the big city Frankfurt. So Frankfurt Oder and Słubice, the town split in two when the country border moved. Poland's border has changed so dramatically. After every major war, there is peace. The treaties that establish this peace will often call for borders to be redrawn, imposed by those who won the war, This was the case after the Second World War. This was the case after the Second World War when Poland gained significant territory from Germany by moving the border all the way to the Oder or Odra river. Suddenly, what had been an internal river became a border between two countries, and the town of Frankfurt, Oder, a namesake of a bigger and better-known Frankfurt am Main, was split into two. Frankfurt Oder is in the German federal state of Brandenburg, which is the state that's around Berlin. The population of this town had been decreasing for quite some time now, from almost 90,000 in the 80s to about 60,000 3 years later. It was officially given town status in the mid-13th century, although it has been inhabited since much earlier. The first settlement was probably on the left bank, with the settlement on the right bank, now Polish, appearing later. In the 19th century, Frankfurt Oder was one of the largest economic centres of the Kingdom of Prussia, and the German Empire, Prussia being part of the empire. With the second largest annual fair in the entire empire, only the Leipzig fair was larger. During the Second World War, there were not many major battles over this Frankfurt, though that does not mean there was no destruction. The Soviet Red Army burnt a completely abandoned and empty town on its way to invade Berlin. After the war, the border between the two new communist neighbours, East Germany and Poland, was drawn along the Oder River, so that the eastern part of Frankfurt, Damovorstadt, was politically separated from the rest of the town. Shortly afterwards, it was renamed Słubice. Słubice is the Polish town opposite Frankfurt, on the right bank of the Oder. The town has a population of almost 20,000 and is named after the former nearby West Slavic settlement Śliwice, which is mentioned in Frankfurt City Charter from the mid-13th century. At that time, the Brandenburg Grafs, counts, bought land from Boleslaus II, the Duke of Silesia. From then on until the Second World War, Frankfurt Oder developed as a unitary town. Presently, Frankfurt and Słubice are tightly connected towns. When Poland entered the European Union in 2004 and joined the Schengen area or agreement in 2007, the border between the two parts of the former unitary Frankfurt was practically abolished. Various town services are gradually being merged, and the towns are cooperating on various projects, such as the joint water treatment plant in Słubice, the Viadrina European University, which was founded in the 16th century and re-established at the end of the 20th century, is located in Frankfurt, together with the Adam Mickiewicz University from the Polish city of Poznań. Collegium Polonicum was founded in Słubice, making the combined town of Frankfurt-Słubice a significant European university and science centre. Many children from Słubice go to preschools in Frankfurt, or kindergarten, while more than 2,000 Poles live in the German town, and several hundred Germans live in Słubice. City public transport already has lines covering both towns, while tour guides show cultural and historical sites on both sides of the river. These sites are being jointly renovated. The Polish language is increasingly being taught in German preschools and schools, and vice versa, the German language in Polish ones. How lovely. Okay, let's take a look at the map of it once more before we finish. Because that's the river Oder. Odra in Polish. And then Słubice is there, and Frankfurt Oder is here. I think there's a bridge there. Okay. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate your time. If you are still awake, could you click on the like button, please? If you're new to the channel, click subscribe. And if you're not new and you love what I do and you want extra content, then why don't you join me on Patreon? Info in the box below. How